The council chamber buzzed with tension as alien delegates from across the galaxy gathered around a grand circular table. Representatives of towering insectoids, crystalline entities, scaled reptilians, and beings of pure psionic energy filled the seats, their voices a cacophony of superiority and arrogance. They debated war strategies against the enemy that had ravaged entire sectors, but their pride outweighed their fear. At the edge of the chamber, standing silently behind Ambassador Kalen of the Tsari, was a lone human bodyguard. He was unarmored, wearing only a dark uniform, his hands folded neatly in front of him, his expression unreadable. Counselor Vree, a 4-meter-tall insectoid with mandibles clicking in amusement, tilted his head toward the human. "Is that what you brought for protection, Kalen?" A soft-skinned biped. His voice dripped with disdain. "He has no claws, no carapace, not even fangs. Fragile as spun glass." Kalen's eyes narrowed, but before he could respond, Counselor Czar, a reptilian general with scales like forged steel, let out a harsh laugh. "Humans? They bruise at the slightest impact. They bleed from the tiniest cut. One swipe of a real warrior's blade, and they fall. Are they pets, Kalen? Decorative, perhaps?" Laughter rippled through the chamber. Even the crystalline delegates chimed in with resonant tones of mockery. The human didn't react. He stood as still as a statue, his eyes calm and observant, as if their ridicule didn't even register. Counselor Vree stepped closer, mandibles twitching in amusement. "Do you expect this fragile creature to defend you when the Racks arrive? Perhaps he'll beg them for mercy." The laughter grew louder, the counselor shaking with amusement at the absurdity of a human bodyguard. The human's gaze remained steady, unflinching. His breathing was even, his posture unbroken. Ambassador Kalen shot him a glance, but the man's expression didn't change. He looked more like a predator studying a herd than a guard enduring insults. The chamber lights flickered. A low, wailing alarm reverberated through the walls, silencing the laughter instantly. Every delegate froze. A trembling aide rushed in, voice panicked and cracking. "Enemy ships, they've breached orbit. The planetary defenses are falling. They're coming here." The council erupted into chaos. Orders were shouted in a dozen languages at once. Activate shield grids, mobilize soldiers, evacuate the council. The once proud counselors now trembled, their composure shattered as reality set in. The deep roar of atmospheric entry boomed overhead. The Hrax fleet, known for slaughtering planets with ruthless efficiency, had arrived. Explosions rocked the city outside. The chamber floor shook violently as distant impacts rattled the building. Counselor Czar fumbled with a comm device, shouting for reinforcements. Counselor Vree scuttled backward toward the exits. Panic clawed at every face. The human stepped forward, hands no longer folded, eyes fixed on the chamber doors. He reached for the rifle slung across his back, movements deliberate and precise. Not a word left his lips. He simply prepared. The first impact hit, like a meteor strike, sending cracks through the ornate walls of the chamber. Dust rained from the ceiling as another explosion ripped apart the council plaza outside. Through the shattered windows, fire and debris painted the once pristine city in chaos. A guttural roar echoed as the Hrax dropship slammed into the ground with bone-shaking force. Their armored doors hissed open and towering figures emerged, hulking beasts of muscle and plated flesh, each armed with plasma cannons that glowed with lethal energy. Their jagged armor was adorned with the remains of past conquests, trophies of slaughter. The delegates screamed orders, but nothing happened. The planetary defense grid had already fallen silent. Kalen's aide fumbled with a communicator, voice shrill as he cried for reinforcements that would never arrive. The first wave of Hrax smashed through the outer halls, their heavy steps reverberating through the chamber floor. Alien guards, the finest soldiers from across the galaxy, raised their weapons. Plasma bolts and psionic blasts tore through the air. The attackers barely slowed. The Hrax surged forward with terrifying speed, shrugging off energy fire as though it were harmless rain. 2 guards were impaled on serrated blades in a single motion. Another was torn apart by plasma fire, so intense it vaporized his armor. Crystalline soldiers shattered under the force of blunt strikes, their glittering shards scattering across the polished floor. In less than 20 seconds, the Council's elite defenders were gone. A Hrax warrior, easily 3 meters tall, strode into the chamber, plasma cannon humming as it charged. Its jagged maw curled into something that resembled a grin. Behind it, more soldiers poured in, weapons ready. Counselor Vree, the same who had mocked earlier, scrambled backward, mandibles chittering in terror. Counselor Czar's scaled hands trembled as he reached for a ceremonial blade that was laughably small compared to the enemy's weapons. The human stepped forward. His expression was unchanged, calm, calculating. He unslung his compact ballistic rifle and racked a bolt with metallic clack that echoed unnaturally loud in the sudden silence. One of the counselors hissed in disbelief. "That's it? That's his weapon." The human didn't respond. His eyes scanned the room, reading angles, lines of sight, cover. He knelt slightly, adjusting his stance. His breathing slowed. The first Hrax fired. A bolt of plasma seared past where the human's head had been a second earlier. In the same instant, the rifle cracked, a sharp, brutal sound compared to the humming energy weapons. The bullet struck dead center in the creature's faceplate, and it collapsed in a heap. The counselors froze. The human didn't. He was already moving. The rifle barked again, the report deafening in the chamber. Another Hrax fell. A neat hole punched through its helmet. Before the body even hit the floor, the human was already sprinting to cover, sliding behind an overturned slab of crystalline debris. Plasma bolts scorched the spot where he'd stood a heartbeat ago, molten sparks spraying the walls. He peeked out for half a second. 2 more cracks, 2 more Hrax down. His movements were precise, no wasted motion, every shot lethal. He switched magazines with a practiced flick, not even looking as his hands worked. The counselors could only stare, their jeers long forgotten, replaced with stunned silence. A Hrax roared and charged, its claws glowing with molten heat. The human didn't back away. He sidestepped at the last instant, slammed the butt of his rifle into the beast's knee, and drove a knife into the gap of its armor. The creature collapsed, shrieking, and he finished it with a round to the head before yanking his blade free. Another plasma blast streaked past, scorching his shoulder armor. He didn't flinch. He grabbed an enemy's fallen plasma cannon, adjusted the unfamiliar controls in blink, and fired it into a cluster of incoming soldiers. The blast tore through them, spraying fragments of armor and flesh across the chamber. The counselors watched in frozen horror. None of them had ever seen combat so raw, so brutal. Aliens fought wars like duels, orderly, predictable. The human fought like a predator unleashed, using whatever was at hand, shooting, stabbing, throwing fragments of broken armor as distractions, never staying in one place for more than a second. He vaulted over a table, firing midair, landing in a crouch behind another shattered column. His sidearm flashed as he put 2 rounds into a Hrax who'd managed to get close. Another soldier lunged at him from behind, and without looking, the human jammed his knife backward into its throat, twisted, and rolled clear before the body hit the ground. Time felt warped to the counselors. For the human, every second was deliberate, calculated. He checked his corners, used enemy corpses as shields, even ripped a plasma blade from a fallen Hrax and hurled it like a spear through another's chest. And then, just as suddenly as it began, it ended. Smoke hung heavy in the air, the scent of scorched flesh and molten metal choking the room. The human stood in the center of the carnage, rifle held low, scanning for movement. Around him, 20 Hrax bodies lay in ruin. Exactly 3 minutes had passed. He ejected the magazine, slammed in a fresh one with steady hands, and took a slow breath, eyes still searching for threats. The counselors could only stare. The chamber was silent except for the faint hiss of burning debris. Counselor Vree's mandibles hung slack. Counselor Czar's scaled hand shook as he lowered the useless ceremonial blade. Around them, the finest soldiers of their worlds lay broken and dead, while the fragile human they had mocked stood unscathed, rifle steady, eyes cold and alert. The human scanned the room once more, then lowered his weapon and slung it over his shoulder with a smooth motion. He exhaled slowly, as if the last 3 minutes had been nothing more than routine. Kalen was the first to find his voice. How did you do that?" The human finally looked at him. His voice was calm, level, without pride or explanation. Experience. The word hung in the air like a blade. Counselor Vree stammered, "That was impossible. You're weaker than us, slower, softer." "How?" The human crouched beside one of the fallen racks, prying a plasma cell from its cannon and pocketing it without hesitation. "Humans aren't stronger. We're not faster. We're not tougher." He stood, eyes sweeping across the terrified council. "We survive because we fight like nothing else in this galaxy. We cheat. We adapt. We learn fast. And we don't stop until the other side is dead." Counselor Czar's voice was barely a whisper. "Predators." The human glanced at him, expression unreadable. "Pack hunters. We track. We plan. And when it's time, we hit hard and we hit first. You spent centuries fighting wars with rules. We don't." Outside, distant explosions still thundered through the city. The human checked his watch, calm as if waiting for a scheduled event. "We need to move. Reinforcements will be here soon, and they won't come alone." None of the counselors moved. They only stared at the carnage, at the neat precision of the kills, the eerie efficiency that no alien soldier had ever matched. The human looked back at them, eyes sharp and unyielding. "You laugh because you think wars are won by who's bigger, stronger, shinier. They're not. They're won by who refuses to lose." Kalen finally stood, his voice steady now but quiet with awe. "Now I understand why every empire that tried to conquer Earth failed." The human adjusted the strap of his rifle and turned toward the ruined doorway, not bothering to reply. He didn't need to. Behind him, the counselors exchanged glances heavy with fear and respect. They had seen the truth in 3 brutal minutes. The most dangerous species in the galaxy didn't have claws, armor, or psychic powers. It had will,